I never thought I'd be caught between my dad's happiness and my own heartbreak, but that's exactly where I found myself. Standing in the middle of a situation I never asked for, trying to pretend I wasn't breaking inside. I'm 26 years old, and until recently, I thought I'd moved on from my past. I thought I'd made peace with everything that had happened between me and my ex, Rachel. We dated for 3 years, broke up 2 years ago, and even though it ended on somewhat good terms, there was still a quiet ache whenever I thought about her. Rachel wasn't just another ex. She was my first serious relationship, my first real love. We met in college, connected over a shared love for books and late-night coffee runs. For a while, I thought she'd be the one I'd spend my life with. But as graduation came closer, we grew apart. I wanted to move to another city for work. She wanted to stay close to her family. We tried to make it work long distance, but eventually, we both realized we were forcing something that had already changed. So we broke up, not with anger or betrayal, but with a heavy kind of sadness. We said we'd stay friends, and for a while we did. But as most people know, staying friends with an ex is rarely simple. The calls faded, the texts became polite but distant, and eventually, we just stopped reaching out. That's why when my dad announced his engagement last year, I didn't think Rachel would ever be part of that story. My dad, Mark, is 52. He's always been the kind of man who believes in second chances. Maybe because he's had to take a few himself. My parents divorced when I was 18. It wasn't messy, just sad. They'd grown apart, and after years of trying to fix something broken, they both decided it was kinder to let go. Dad met his fiancée Claire through work. She's 41, warm, and surprisingly down to earth. She works in real estate, and apparently so does Rachel. I didn't know that until recently. When my dad first told me about Claire, I was happy for him. He'd spent so many years alone, and he deserved someone who made him smile again. I met her at a family dinner, and she seemed genuinely kind. She asked about my job, my friends, even about my mom, all without awkwardness. For once, everything felt peaceful. One night, over dinner, Dad said, "We want you to be one of the bridesmaids." I smiled. It was sweet of them to include me. But then he added, almost casually, "Rachel will be one too. Hope that's okay." At first, I laughed. I genuinely thought he was joking. But when he didn't smile, my stomach dropped. I stared at him for a few seconds, trying to process it. "Wait, Rachel? As in my ex Rachel?" He nodded. "Yeah, she and Claire work together. They've become close. Claire really wanted her in the wedding party. It means a lot to her." I didn't even know what to say. My dad knew how serious Rachel and I were. He knew how much that breakup had affected me. So I asked quietly, "And you're okay with that?" He shrugged. "Of course. You two are on good terms, right? It's not a big deal. Not a big deal." The words echoed in my head like an insult. It might not have been a big deal to him, but to me, it felt like a punch to the chest. The idea of standing at the altar next to the person I used to love, watching her smile, pretending we were just two friends from the past, it made my stomach twist. I went home that night and just sat on my bed, staring at the wall. It wasn't just about Rachel. It was about feeling like my emotions didn't matter. Over the next few days, I tried to convince myself it was fine, that I was overreacting. Rachel and I had both moved on. I even messaged her, partly out of curiosity, partly because I wanted to see how she felt about it. She replied quickly, "Hey, yeah, crazy coincidence, right? But I hope it's not awkward. I'm happy for your dad and Claire. She's amazing." It was polite. Too polite. And that's when I realized something. She really had moved on. She didn't seem to feel the discomfort I did. That stung more than I expected. The weeks passed and wedding prep started ramping up. I tried to avoid thinking about it, but every family chat, every update from my dad brought it back. Then one afternoon, Claire called me. She was excited, talking about dresses, colors, and fittings. Then she said, "Rachel's helping me with the bridesmaid dresses. She's got such a good eye." I smiled tightly, even though she couldn't see me. "That's great," I said. But inside, I felt like the outsider in my own family's celebration. It wasn't that I disliked Claire. She truly didn't mean any harm. But I couldn't shake the feeling that my history was being paraded in front of me, like it didn't matter. When I finally brought it up to my dad, I tried to be calm. "Dad," I said one evening, "I know you and Claire want me involved, and I love that. But having Rachel there, it's uncomfortable for me. Can't she just attend as a guest?" He frowned, like he couldn't understand what the problem was. "Sweetheart, you're reading too much into it. You're an adult. You and Rachel are fine, right? Why make it weird? Because it is weird, I said, my voice cracking a little. She's my ex. You know how serious we were. And now I have to stand next to her while you marry her coworker? He sighed. I just think you're being immature about this. Immature. That word hit hard. I hung up soon after that conversation and cried. Not because of Rachel, but because my dad, the one person who always understood me, suddenly didn't. For days, I thought about whether I should even attend. I felt guilty for feeling hurt, guilty for wanting to stay away. But I also knew pretending everything was fine would eat me alive. A few weeks before the wedding, Rachel reached out again. She said she'd heard from Claire that I seemed uncomfortable, and she wanted to clear the air. We met for coffee. Seeing her again was strange, familiar but distant. She looked happy. She'd grown into herself, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of sadness and relief. We talked about the past, not deeply, just enough to acknowledge it. Then she said something that stayed with me. I know this situation is awkward. I didn't mean for it to be, but I'm really happy where I am now. And I hope you are too. Maybe this can just be a weird little coincidence instead of something painful. I didn't have an answer right away, but after that conversation, I started seeing things differently. Rachel wasn't the one making this hard. My dad wasn't trying to hurt me. It was just life being complicated. People connecting in unexpected ways. So I decided to go. The morning of the wedding, I took a deep breath before walking into the venue. I felt nervous but not broken. I reminded myself, this day wasn't about me. It was about my dad finding happiness again. When I saw him at the altar, beaming as Claire walked down the aisle, I understood why he hadn't wanted to make a big deal of it. He looked so happy, like a weight had lifted off his shoulders. And when I glanced at Rachel, standing just a few feet away, I realized something important. The past didn't define me anymore. Yes, it hurt once. Yes, it was awkward. But I was okay. After the ceremony, Rachel approached me. She smiled and said, "You did great up there." I smiled back. "You too." That was it. No drama, no tension. Just two people who had shared a part of life once and moved on. Later that night, during the reception, my dad gave a speech. He thanked everyone, then turned to me and said, "To my daughter, thank you for standing by me even when things got uncomfortable. You've grown into someone I'm proud of." That was the moment I realized I'd done the right thing. I wasn't there to prove anything. I was there because, despite everything, I loved my dad. And when I finally left the wedding that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not because everything made sense, but because I'd finally stopped fighting it.